Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to get into one of Python's most powerful tools, something that makes your programs way smarter and more flexible. If you've ever wanted your code to react to a situation instead of just doing the same thing over and over, you are in exactly the right place. Let's jump in.
So by now, you're probably pretty good friends with the for loop. And it's great, right? When you know precisely how many times you need to do something, like draw exactly 5 squares. It's perfect. But what happens when you don't know? What if your job is to keep asking for a number until the total is over 100? That could take 2 numbers, it could take 20. You just don't know. And for that, the for loop, well, it just isn't the right tool for the job.
And this is a super common problem in coding. We need a way to loop based on a condition, not just a count. We need a loop that can, check in, see if it's time to stop, and if not, just keep on chugging along.
And that, my friends, brings us to the hero of our story today, the while loop. This is the absolute perfect tool for when the number of repeats is a total mystery, and you just need to keep going until you hit some kind of goal. So what is a while loop, really? Well, it just runs code over and over again based on a simple true or false condition. The key word here is while. The code inside the loop will keep on executing while that condition stays true. The second it flips to false, the loop stops. That's it. Here's maybe the easiest way to think about it. You'll already know how an if statement works, right? It checks a condition one time, and if it's true, it runs some code. Well, a while loop is basically an if statement that just keeps going. After it runs the code, it zips right back to the top and checks the condition all over again. It's like a really, really persistent if statement. All right, that's enough theory. The best way to really get the hang of the while loop is to see it do its thing. So we're going to walk through 3 different examples to show you just how useful this thing can be. Okay, let's go back to that problem from the beginning. We want the user to keep typing in numbers, and we'll add them up. We only stop once the total gets to 100 or more. This is a perfect job for a while loop, because we have absolutely no idea how many numbers it's going to take. So let's check out the code. We start with our total at 0. Then we hit the magic line, while total.value less than 100. This just tells Python, hey, as long as the total is less than 100, keep doing everything indented inside this loop. And inside, we just get the user's input and add it to the total. Python's just going to repeat that little dance. Check, get input, add, until that total finally hits 100. Then the condition becomes false and the loop is over. Okay, let's try something a little more visual. Imagine we want to draw a big rectangle, then another one inside that's half the size, then another one half that size, and just keep going. We'll stop when the rectangles get, smaller than 25 pixels. I mean, look how clean this code is. We start our app.size at 400. The loop checks, while app.size is greater than 25. As long as that's true, we draw a rectangle. And then, and this is super important, we update the size. We cut it in half. The loop runs, checks if 200 is bigger than 25. Yep. Runs again, checks if 100 is bigger than 25. Yep. And so on, until the size just isn't bigger than 25 anymore. Now look, could we have sat down with a calculator, figured out how many rectangles we'd end up drawing, and then used a for loop? Yeah, sure, but why would we? This is so much easier to read. We're just telling the computer our goal. Keep going while the size is big enough. We let Python worry about the counting. It's just cleaner. All right, for our last example, let's get a little dynamic. Let's say we have a star that the user can move around and there's a diamond at the bottom of the screen. When the user hits the space bar, we want the star to fall until it hits that diamond. The catch, the user could have moved the star anywhere, so the distance it needs to fall is always going to be different. This is where the while loop is just brilliant. Inside our keypress function, the condition is while star.hitsShape diamond equals false. In plain English, that's just keep looping while the star is not hitting the diamond. Simple, right? And what do we do in the loop? We just nudge the star down a tiny bit. It'll take that tiny step over and over and over until that hitsShape function finally says true, and the loop knows its job is done. Okay, now that you've seen how awesome while loops are, we gotta have a little talk about the dark side. There is one great danger, a classic trap that every single programmer falls into at least once. But don't worry, I'm gonna give you the pro tip to avoid it. So think about that for a second. If the condition the loop is checking just never becomes false, then the loop has no reason to ever stop. It'll just keep running and running and running forever, and your program will completely freeze up. This is called an infinite loop, and yeah, we definitely want to avoid those. So, how do we escape this trap? It really just comes down to 3 simple steps. First, you have to set up or initialize the variable you're checking before the loop starts. Second, you check that variable in the while condition. And third, and this is the one people always forget, you absolutely must update that variable somewhere inside the loop. If we forgot op.size divided equals 2 in our rectangle code, the size would always be 400, it would always be greater than 25, and we'd be drawing rectangles forever.
So there you have it. You've now got 2 really powerful looping tools in your coding toolkit, the for loop and the while loop. The real superpower isn't just knowing how they work, but knowing which one to pick for the right job. Let's just break it down one last time to make it stick. It's pretty simple, actually. Use a for loop when you know the exact number of times you need to go, like loop 10 times. Use a while loop when you're waiting for something to happen, for a condition to change, like loop until the user clicks quit. Honestly, if you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, make it this. For loops are for counting, and while loops are for checking. One is for a known amount, the other is for an unknown situation. If you can get that down, you've totally mastered loops. And that's pretty much the whole story on the while loop. You now have this amazing power to create programs that are way more interactive and smart. So the only question left is, what are you going to build with it? What kind of cool problem are you going to solve now that your code can wait and check and react? Go for it, and happy coding!